Hello, track fans and hopefully soon to be track fans. Uh, the men's 200-meter race in Doha, the Diamond League event, just happened about a day ago, and I watched the interviews after the race, and I thought there were a few really interesting bits to what Lyles, Kerley, and Grasse said. It also ties into something I've been thinking about and investigating. Um, so, just a couple things I wanted to cover here. One is it was really windy in Doha. I was watching the weather and it was saying 20 to 30 mile per hour winds. And I was watching the events and they were showing wind readings of 8 meters per second. But then when the men's 200 happened, the wind reading was 2.1 meters per second. So it was really close to being legal times. But when I watched this interview video, you can hear the wind howling. The interviewer asked these guys about what it was like to run in such strong winds. They comment that the wind was such that it was really hard to start the race. They started the race running into a headwind. So yeah, it's like, yeah, you get a tailwind, but not really. You got to run the first 100 into a stiff wind. So something I've been thinking about is something Lyles said where he was like, oh, my favorite lane, I got a good lane, and I just didn't know what that meant when it's like, what does it mean to for there to be a good lane in 200? So I've been thinking about that lately, and let's see, I wanted to show, right, just thinking about the layout of a track. I don't actually know, but I think wind is measured in the same way they measure it for the 100 meters. So they're measuring it in the direction of this last stretch up to the finish line. And I just want to point out that as you could have a 0 meter per second wind where there really is no wind. But you could also have a 0 meter per second wind where it's blowing directly across the track here. So imagine this is running east to west, but you have a 30 meter per second wind. I mean, almost like, I don't want to call it a hurricane, but it's blowing straight across the track. Right? That registers as 0. But you think about it from the perspective of having to run the 200, you've got to start running into that. Right, and that's basically what happened in Doha, where the wind wasn't 2 meters per second; it was 10 meters per second, but it was blowing mostly across this track, and so they had to run into it as a headwind, and so they had to fight through the headwind. They had to start, right, and they talk about this in the interview that was a hard start, and then they got a 2.1 along this stretch, which was 1/10 of a meter second too fast. And so it's really a tough situation where that doesn't count for them. I'm sure they would have, much, nobody would want to run in those conditions again. So, I don't know what the solution to this is for the 200. I've been looking at wind data for here's the 100 meters. I'm looking at the fastest 1,000 times ever. And you can see that most of the fastest times ever were when the wind was, a tailwind. And the 200, it's, it's still there, but a little less so. It's like, obviously it's better to have a tailwind than a headwind, but wouldn't you just rather not have any wind? And then there's this big time complicating factor with 200 that these runners are running in a lot of different directions. This is the direction they're running the longest, but it's like would you want to start a race running into a headwind? So. I guess I wish that they would increase the sophistication of how they're measuring the 200 so that they're maybe taking a few different readings. But then that comes with that's not easy to do. So I don't know, but something to think about. And when you see the 19.7 whatever that Lyles and Kerley ran, respect it, even though they didn't get a legal reading on those. All right. The other thing that really stood out to me in this interview was that Andre de Grasse mentions that that he wasn't really in running form yet. That it's typical for him to not be performing great as an early Diamond League, right? He didn't say this, but right, he's a Canadian who gets a little bit of a free pass to the World Championships. But he also mentioned that he's not sure he's going to focus on the 200 yet. This might be the year of the 100 for him, and it makes some sense, right? He's the Olympic gold medalist in the 200, right? Just ride that for a couple of years, right? Or not 2 years, but another year. Like what's he got to really gain by getting in there with Knighton and Lyles and Benerick and Kerley, and it's like last year was a really great year for him in terms of how he finished. If we go here and we look at just like some of the best 200 runners since 2009, right? We got DeGrasse, Knighton, Kerley, Benerick, Lyles, Bolt, and Blake. Now, there's DeGrasse. Like on one hand, you say, oh, he's, maybe this year he's going to continue to get even faster. But, maybe this last year was really just an amazing year for him. He's the Olympic gold. Okay, now focus on the 100. Does he really want to just, finish second or third in, the year of, what's probably going to shape up to be the Knighton Lyles year? Right. And then I want to say a little bit about that, right? America has 4 extraordinary 200-meter runners right now, at least. Right? There's Kerley, Benerick, Lyles, and Knighton. Look at Lyles for a second. Of he has three years in a row where he's put down incredible times, and he's 6:19, 6:5, 19:50, 19:52. And then here's this year. And he is looking like he's progressing to, this could be his best year yet. He could, I think it's fair to expect him to run, a 19:52 or faster, especially because he can kind of time his peak for the World Championships because he is an automatic qualifier. So, yeah, I mean, Lyles is going to run sub, I don't know the conditions in Eugene, but he's gonna run an elite time. And so is Erriyon Knighton, and they've raced twice this year. Knighton's won both times, but the first time it was by less than 1,000th of a second, and the next time it was by less than 100th of a second. Right. My expectation is those two guys put on one heck of a show, and finish within 1/10 of a second of each other. So we're going to get one of the best races ever. Is what it looks like. And then there's going to be Benerick and Kerley, and they're good enough to be in the mix. I mean, look at Benerick, right? He's got an 8.7 and a 7.6, and getting faster. And then there's Kerley, who's really kind of new to the 200 and figuring it out, as we saw in Doha. Like he's capable of running with Lyles. So, it'll be interesting to see what DeGrasse chooses to do, and I'm just super excited about the 200 this year, and I'm going to keep following it.